Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Power Productivity Bootcamp. Tonight is night number 2, workshop number 2. You're in the right place. Thank you for joining, making the time, making the effort, and getting the right link. I'm glad we got through the link issue from yesterday. Tonight, we're going to talk about productivity killers. I see that 24 of you already on the call. Thank you for being here. I was just basically welcoming you back, and I wanted to see what people thought about last night before we start with tonight's presentation, which is about productivity killers. So please send a hello to the chat, which I can read here. And also maybe write a couple words about how you might have felt a little bit differently, how you might have acted a little bit differently, what kind of aha moments you had during today while reflecting on what we spoke about last night. I would love to hear what's changed in between last night and now. It's only been 24 hours, but we can see so much of a difference sometimes when we put our minds to change. So let me know what's been happening. And I see that there are about 37 of you online. And I'm hoping that the chat is working. Let me know if the chat is working. I'm going to wait another minute or two. Hi, Christina. And it looks like the chat is working. So we're off to the races. Okay. And I think I'm going to honor those of you who have come on time, and I'm going to get rolling too. But maybe we have a few comments about what's been happening in the past 24 hours. So Donna says, yes, thank you. RJ said, had 2 small goals today, met them, showed up for myself. Wonderful. Very proud of you, RJ. I saw that you had your workbook filled out in the Facebook comments as well. And hello, Wendy. So feel free, yes, to post your wins throughout tonight's session. And those of you who are new to the boot camp or missed last night's workshop, don't worry, we'll get you caught up. You didn't miss much that can't be taught tonight. And I'm going to have a catch-up call this Saturday at 4:30 Eastern for anyone and everyone who wants another coaching call and who would like to get caught up with the week's events and material. So I wanted to let you know that too. Christina says, I was pleased to see the energy and the connections being made last night. There's comfort in knowing one is not alone. That was a very frequent comment for me. I think more frequent than in past workshops. So that really warms my heart too. Thank you, Christina, for noticing that and mentioning that. Roxanne says, hello. The Be Do Have model is wonderful. It really is transformative, isn't it, Roxanne? Thank you. Colleen says, missed last night. Okay, welcome. And thank you for coming, Colleen. No worries. Denise Ann says, hi from Toronto. I really enjoyed last night. Decided I wasn't going to shame myself for my productivity level today and felt much more productive. Go figure. Denise, that is so beautiful and such a win. So don't make a small thing of that. That is a really big thing. You basically cleared your heart of negativity and criticism. So keep going in that direction. You've got it. Deborah says, hello, everyone. I came away feeling very positive after last night's call. Be Do Have is simple but powerful. Today was a fresh start, indeed. And tonight, I'm going to give you more reasons to think that tomorrow is going to be an even better start. So let's get going. And thank you for sharing all these positive comments. I love these comments. I love the effect that coming together has, and I love helping people to see that they don't have to do all the negativity, all the criticism, all the sedentariness maybe in life. And we have so many different options, and I think I'm going to show you a lot more of them tonight. Tonight's topic, I'm going to head to the slides, and let's see if I can do this. All right. And so far, so good. Tonight is Power Productivity Bootcamp 2023. Tonight is workshop number 2, Productivity Killers, the mistakes to avoid. And I want to remind everyone that there is a contest for everyone who is actively participating in the Power Productivity Bootcamp. And there are going to be some prizes awarded at the end of this week. The week is going to fly by. I think it already is. And I'm going to share one very big grand prize with one lucky winner who is taking action and showing us in the boot camp that they are taking action. And the more times you enter into this contest, the better your chances of winning. And the Ultimate Success Creators Prize package is the grand prize that again will be awarded to one person randomly selected from the group of entries that is submitted. And the prize includes a full scholarship to the Success Creators Academy, my upcoming 10-week coaching program. You're all invited to consider joining it. And it's an in-depth coaching-led program where I teach all about how to be productive, how to be successful at time usage, goal getting, and making the best out of your life. And in addition to that scholarship to the full program with all the perks and benefits and bonuses, you will also get 2 private 60-minute conversations with me. We can talk about anything you like, not just productivity and procrastination. And those are included in this wonderful prize package. And I want to remind you that a curious mind knows no limits. And for me, that means that whatever you can think of, you can achieve. Whatever you can dream of, you can move towards. So just think of this entire bootcamp experience as an expansion experience, that instead of feeling like you have to be small, you have to be careful, you have to be perfect. Those are all small concepts. I think you can start thinking of yourself as like this brilliant, bright star, this expert in the things that you love to do, this wonderful giver of love and attention to other people in your life, and this beautiful person who takes care of themselves and their responsibilities as well. So think of yourself as a big dreamer now, instead of someone who's afraid of failure, afraid of comparison, afraid of all the things that really we generally don't need to be actually afraid of. And now I want to go to the first exercise of tonight, and that is the mountain exercise. It's also called the Mount Everest exercise. And I was taught this by a coach, and I don't oftentimes use it for myself, but I think I use the be, do, have model that I taught yesterday more often. So for those of you like Colleen who were not able to come last night, the be, do, have model says that we need to be the successful person that we are hoping to be in the future today. We can't wait until we take all those steps up the mountain and get to the top before we start to feel good. And so instead of saying, I'm going to start feeling like I'm lacking this, that, and the other thing, that I need to have certain things before I can do certain things to be the person that I want to be, you're going to flip that formula around and you're going to say, I'm going to be the person that I need and want to be to do the right steps, the effective steps that will get me to have the things that I want. So instead of have, do, be, you're going to be the person, the success up front. Then you're going to do the actions that are apparent after that. And then you're going to have the goals and dreams that you are wishing for. The mountain exercise is, as you can imagine, very similar to the be, do, have exercise. At the bottom of the image, you see a few terms that indicate that you're at the bottom of the mountain. You're at the start of your journey and you're feeling a few things, some negative things. Maybe you're feeling frustrated with yourself. You're feeling like you're taking care of everyone except yourself. I heard that comment a lot yesterday. You are feeling like your goals aren't even defined yet. So you don't know where you're headed. You don't know which path up the mountain you're going to take. you feel like you have some disorganization in the way that you use your time and your space. And then you have potential itch, which is a really bizarre phrase, but that means that you know deep down in your heart that you are made for more, that you are meant for more, that you are capable of much more. So that potential is itching at you, if you get what I mean. And the Mount Everest exercise has us envision ourselves at the top of the mountain. And you can imagine if you did all the effort and made the trek in the rough weather to climb up Mount Everest, that you would be feeling exhilarated. You would be feeling so proud of yourself. You would be amazed at yourself. You would be so grateful for the opportunity. You would be marveling at how your life has changed just by this one feat that you were able to make. That is the attitude that I want you to have all the time, not just if you actually climb Mount Everest. Most of you won't, imagining. But I want you to have that kind of spirit of wonder, marveling at yourself, admiration for yourself, and also the words on the screen: freedom from procrastination, stress, excuses, overwhelm. It's like once you've reached your success point, you don't have to worry about all that stuff. You don't have to get through the slog of the negative feelings and the procrastination anymore. You have self confidence, you have happiness, and you have clarity, which is really important. So, let me know with a Y in the chat if you understand the Mount Everest exercise. And also, you might want to say why if you understand it, but also know what would be your Mount Everest. What would you need to do to feel this way? What goals do you have in mind? So you might want to share some thoughts about what is your mountain that you are wanting to climb? And are you feeling really frustrated that you haven't stepped on the mountain yet? You may just let me know what your feeling is. Also, Kat shared it's not clear yet. Totally understand that. But this mountain allows you to see I need to make some decisions. What is my mountain? Where is it in my life? What do I need to do to start my journey? And how do I want to feel when I'm starting? You don't want to feel like you're procrastinating at the bottom of the mountain anymore. You want to start feeling like there's so many mountains for me to climb in this life. Let me just tackle this first one. The mountain is to start. Exactly. And thank you, everyone, for sharing the yeses. Okay, great. Glad you guys understood that. Now you'll have to decide whether you will keep trying to work without a strategic plan or decision or support, or whether you will learn how to create a plan for productivity that fits perfectly with your dreams, your values, and your life. I was speaking to someone earlier today, and I noted that they were thinking about all sorts of things, but what I was getting confused by was the fact that they hadn't made a decision yet. Once you make a decision about what you're going to do, which mountain, which pace you're going to go up the mountain with, what clothes you're going to wear, everything starts to fall in place. And if you don't make that decision first for yourself, you're basically leaving your mind to just wander, float around, procrastinate, watch television, go to the refrigerator, walk the dog, do the stuff that isn't quite momentous or maybe as meaningful to you as you might be able to do. So don't worry about making decisions. Decisions bring actions, and actions bring clarity. Decisions bring action, and action brings clarity. Are all decisions correct? Of course they're not. But do we have more clarity when we make decisions? Absolutely. When we make mistakes, I feel in my life, I know that my mistakes have been my biggest teachers, and that sucks, but it's the truth. So we want to be open and honest with ourselves that we're nervous to take a decision, make a decision, but actually we're brave enough to see what happens when we do venture to make a good decision, a risky one, perhaps a challenging one. But we're going to say we're moving up the mountain instead of thinking, I'm just going to decide to stay at the bottom of the mountain and not go anywhere. All right. The next exercise I have for you, some of you probably have heard about. It's called the Jar of Life exercise. And I don't actually know the origin of this story, but the idea is that a professor was at the front of the classroom and asked his students, I believe it was a male teacher in the image, let's look at this jar and we have these rocks and we have these pebbles and we have this sand. And he dropped the big rocks into the jar and asked the class, is the jar full? And the student said yes. And then he proceeded to add the pebbles in. And then the students marveled that he could actually fit more because the pebbles filled the empty spaces. And then the third part was he actually asked them again, is this jar filled? And they said yes. And then he poured a whole bunch of sand in, and the sand is very granular, of course, and then the sand kind of trickled into the jar, thereby filling the jar of life. And the reason why it's called the jar of life is that we each have a jar that is our life, and we have to examine or consider, what are we doing with our jar of life? Are we filling it with a lot of sand? Sand would be things like time wasters, like worry. It would be like doing things over and over and over again without learning from them. It might be things like doing a lot of social media that is not really purposeful or enjoyable for you, but it's just kind of a numbing activity for you. That might be your sand. The pebbles might be things like your car. You kind of need your car. It's kind of a big thing. You have to maintain it, but it's not necessarily the most essential thing in your life. And the rocks are the most essential things in your life. The things that give you joy, the things that give you meaning, the things that perhaps give you income, the things that give you inspiration, the things that maybe house you, your house or your apartment may be a big rock that you want to take care of. And you want to reflect to yourself, am I filling my jar with a lot of sand? And then I feel like I don't have room for all the big rocks. And then you feel like you're dropping things like the big rocks in your life. Are you dropping your health? Perhaps the biggest rock of all. Are you dropping your finances? Are you dropping your relationships? I don't want to scare anyone, but I do want to give you the motivation and the inspiration to evaluate, how are you balancing things these days. And it's, of course, completely understandable if you feel like you are not pleased with how you're managing the rocks, the pebbles, and the sand. But the good news is, today and this workshop and this boot camp are a great starting point for rearranging how you're doing things in the jar of life. Okay. Deborah says, lots of sand with capital LOTS. Kim says, me too, sand. Thank you for sharing that. Christina says, I'm challenged by feeling pulled by multiple demands. My non negotiables for the next 3 to 5 years include not missing any of my kids' events and having downtime and some travel. Wonderful. So, those are the big rocks. The challenges of growing a young new business is demanding. Part of my challenge includes aligning the business priorities with two partners. I would like to outline what my next steps are, maintain some sanity and peace between the partners. I love it. Those are big rocks, maybe mixed in with a few smaller pebbles. And I love that you went to, I need to outline what is next. I need to outline a game plan that's going to help you get your jar feeling like it's in order and not bursting or overflowing or uncomfortably filled with sand. So, congratulations. Wendy says, this morning, my aha was to tackle my paperwork and get down to just mail coming in each day. Will take a while, but starting with mail in 20 more minutes, filing and entering to dos to pay errands, etc., on my calendar. So I have an idea of what I actually need to do and what is next. This is my mountain, to know where I am at and not lost at where to start. I started this morning and intend to keep going. This is going with my first cup of coffee. When that house and phone is quiet, then I will also see my, I think you might have been cut off, but I get it, Wendy. You're making a new start. You're basically deciding, I'm going to fix my jar of life. I'm going to get the details done in the morning, right with my cup of coffee, so that I have more time to explore the rocks and the pebbles, to take care of things, to feel good about myself. So, congratulations. Wonderful. Okay. And I think there are a bunch more Mount Everest comments. I'm going to stick with the jar comments for now. Monique said, I dropped the big rock 3 years ago. Okay, Monique, if you wanted to share what the big rock was, feel free to do that. Marcia said, I am challenged by being pulled in different directions at work. I have a lot of sand time wasters because of unclear goals and how to reach them at work due to difficulties with organization. Okay, so Marcia, for you, one of the big rocks for now might be learning the skills of organization, right? Our rocks can change. They're not always going to be the same thing. That's why it's a jar, right? We can actually have multiple jars in our lives too. I think we can have a business jar, we can have a work jar, we can have our kids jar, we can have a health jar. You can think of it like that. But in each area of our lives, we want to do what's important, what's going to get us the most efficiency as we can figure out for ourselves. And I believe that planning ahead of time really gives you a leg up when it comes to getting the payoff on the other side. I have never been a great planner, but I've learned very much in recent years the benefit of taking that extra time and just thinking through what can I anticipate? What do I want to happen? It's that mountain exercise, it's that be do have exercise. It's envisioning what you want and then working step by step to get there. I keep mentioning my podcast, and doing a podcast is kind of just seeing your goals be activated every single week. What's my goal? What's the title? Who's the guest? What am I going to advocate? What am I going to teach? How are the show notes going to look? All of these things. It's a gradual process, but if you stay consistent and you keep an eye on the goal, then everything's going to work out beautifully. We don't, again, have to fear. Meanwhile, in the jar of life exercise, we didn't say, okay, now where does the fear go? It's just really, what do you want to do? And how do you want to fit it in? How do you want to use your time? Fear takes up the bottom half of the jar, and then you have no room for anything because you're afraid of touching the jar. Don't do that. That's the big lesson of tonight. Christina says, no, not multiple jars. Eek. That's wonderful. Donna says, I'm working on trying to do more things for myself each day besides my doctor appointments, as I do a lot for others and not for me. Decisions are hard for me as I do not have much help with them. Decisions need to be our own, and we need to take them and make them with the confidence of someone who can climb Mount Everest. You can do this. You are in charge of your jar of life. Unfortunately, no one else is. Fortunately and unfortunately, I think it's the big lesson that we all have to come to at some point in our lives, that we are the owners of the jar. We are the managers of the jar. And many of you who have studied with me and learned from me in the past know that I say this all the time, right? We need to be the big boss of our lives, and there's no two ways around that. Okay. And Donna said she thinks she lost connection, but I think if you're writing this, you've got a pretty good connection, Donna. Okay, let's move on. Thank you for going through this. Now we're going to go through a few productivity killers just so that you can be aware of them and be on the lookout for them. The first one, I really love this part of the presentation and the pictures. Productivity killer number one, thinking that you're not ready. So many of you, when I opened the Facebook group, noted that you were caught in a state of overwhelm. And generally, that means two things. One is that you're looking at too many things at the same time and you're feeling overwhelmed. And two, you're not taking action, because action again brings that clarity. And then the clarity gives you more momentum and more motivation and more inspiration. So if you're thinking to yourself, I'm just going to wait until I feel ready or until I am ready or someone indicates that I can be ready, you're going to be waiting a long time, because that's not where your energy actually comes from. Your energy comes from the decision, which creates the action, which creates the result and the clarity. So if you're not thinking you're not ready to make a decision. And then that holds up the entire rest of the pattern that I described. We make a decision, we take an action, we get a result, and we get clarity. Okay. It might not be favorable to us, but you get the information. And generally, when we make a decision with our best heart and mind in the effort, we do feel happy. We are happy to take action. The comments that I've had in the chat so far tonight are that people are drinking their coffee in the morning with a different attitude. And that's the result you're going to see. You're going to see a higher mood, higher effectiveness, higher rate of getting things done. And you're going to be ready for that once you start. So do not kill your productivity by thinking to yourself that you need to be ready or that you are not ready. Productivity killer number 2 is failing to make decisions. I discussed this already just a few minutes ago. When we refuse to make decisions, when we delay making decisions, when we don't actually see that a decision needs to be made, then we lose time and we lose energy and we lose the opportunity to make actions. I'm thinking about the idea of buying a house in a hot housing market. That's not my current situation, but you can imagine somebody's in that situation currently. And if they're the kind of person who tends to want everything to be perfect, they're going to be missing out on maybe the next best house for them, or they're going to miss out on the bidding war, or they're just going to miss out because they're afraid to take action. So know that we get things when we take action. We get inspiration, information, new homes, we get a good deal when you take action. So decide that you're going to be a person who no longer is worried about making decisions. You're going to see every decision that you make as an opportunity instead of a threat. Okay, you can write that down if you missed that. I will repeat it. Look at decisions as opportunities instead of threats. And then you're going to show up more successfully. You're going to show up more bravely when you have to make a decision. It does cause our mind to have to evaluate things, and it can feel stressful, especially with things like buying a house, especially if you've never done that before. But we all kind of survive those things too. Okay. And if you haven't yet bought a house, you will survive that process one of these days. Okay. And Deborah says perfection is the killer of progress. Yes, absolutely. It's a killer of a lot more than progress. It's the killer of joy oftentimes because we end up feeling like things have to be exactly a certain way. Otherwise, we can't be happy. And that's restricting. So I agree with you, Deborah. Christina says, okay, I'm the big boss of my life and I have responsibility to my work team and their priorities don't align with mine. What is my obligation to myself, to my team? You want to know that you can handle both and that by taking care of yourself and operating as your highest, most successful self, your clarity with your team is going to benefit, right? If you feel like you're not good enough for either portion, everything is kind of going to go south or be a little bit slower. So decide, I'm going to take my team with me up the mountain. Okay. And Marcia said, fear and anxiety are killers of happiness. Absolutely. And they take up too much of our lives oftentimes. Fong says, someone told me focus on progress, not perfection. Absolutely. That someone was very wise. Okay. Let's move on. Productivity killer number 3, believing that your worries are your best advisors. Christina mentioned a couple comments ago that she's concerned about the priorities of her team and being pulled in 2 different directions. And I want you to start thinking, how can I re-envision this same situation in a way where everyone gets to feel like a winner? And that's an exercise that everybody here, not just the business owners, not just Christina, can take. Instead of thinking, oh my God, what is the consequence? What's the punishment? What's the tax? What's the fear that I have to prepare for? You want to think, what is the way that I can act or I can think of to make sure that everyone feels like a winner at the end of this? Okay. So try to lean with your inspiration rather than with your fears, because your fears are just making you see the dark corner of the room rather than the entire room of possibilities and options that you have. Okay. And let's keep going to productivity killer number 4, believing that you need to force yourself to work. This probably should be productivity killer number 1 because I hear it so often. Those of you who have worked with me in the past know that I will jump at any opportunity to correct someone who's saying, "I'm gonna force myself to do it," or "This is so hard. This is so hard. This is so hard." Whenever you're telling your brain and yourself that things are hard or you need to force yourself to do things, you're going to immediately also have the instinct to run because nobody here enjoys being forced into things, especially when the people here feel like they're actually the manager and the boss of their jar of life. If somebody came around and said, "I have this big boulder that I wanna stuff in your jar of life," would you feel like you like that person? Would you feel kindly towards that person? You might feel for them because you're gonna completely guard your jar of life from them coming anywhere near it because you wanna save your good space for yourself. This is for the people pleasers in the house tonight. You really wanna take care of your personal time and space because other people are gonna want little bits and chunks of your time. And therefore, you can use this productivity killer tip and use the reverse. Instead of feeling that you have to see everything as being hard or experience things as being hard so that you have to force yourself to do it, you want to be like the person today who was using their coffee cup as an inspiration starting point for seeing that they can love planning their day and getting things done right in the morning. Everything can be an easy glide up the mountain instead of dragging 100 pounds of baggage up the mountain. You don't want to do that. You don't want to force yourself into anything. It is a mindset shift, but you can absolutely shift your mind. And let's see. Christina says, "Thank you, Christine. I'm struggling with having enough energy to bring them up the mountain. I've been working on it for months. I'm afraid I won't be able to sustain this energy level." Again, the languages of fear. So I want you to decide what is your mission and get everybody on board with you. It can be a small mission to start, but why don't you do that? Maybe something that the team can collaborate on and get a win. Okay. And Deborah says, you would feel resentful if somebody came at you with a big rock into your jar, right? Fong said, what was number 3? Believing that your worries are your best advisors. Your worries are not your best advisors. Thank you, Nola, for helping there. And we're doing well. Okay. So let's go to the next section, which is productivity traps and procrastination traps. I'm sorry. I am trying to read 2 screens at once because I'm trying to make sure that everybody is getting in, but I think we're good. Okay. So sorry for that distraction there. Procrastination traps is our next section. And let's go on to the first one. Procrastination traps are feeling like you're not good enough. This can come at us consciously and unconsciously. When we're feeling it consciously, when we know that we're thinking this way, we might be inclined to procrastinate. When we're feeling it unconsciously, when we're not even knowing about it, we might be inclined to self-sabotage. That means forgetting our keys at home or forgetting the document when we have to go to the accountant, forgetting your words when you're doing a podcast episode or a presentation. So those are procrastination traps. When you feel like you're not good enough, you're not going to feel like you have the energy or the authority to really do what you set out to do. So you really want to start out any sort of public presentation, any sort of project that you care about, right? Even if it's like, let's say, talking to your son and trying to convince him that getting his homework done is a really good idea. You want to start that conversation knowing that you fully believe in yourself and your message, right? You're not going to waffle and argue with your son. You might discuss things with your son, but you're certainly not going to feel like you're not good enough to get this important conversation done. Okay. So another procrastination trap is listening to the inner stories. We've already covered this in workshop number 1 a lot, but we all have these stories. We wouldn't be human and we wouldn't be the bosses of our lives if we didn't have stories to contend with. And generally, when we use the phrase inner stories these days, we mean to reflect the fact that we are telling ourselves inner stories that are not true. They're actually quite negative. They might even be demeaning to ourselves. They might be self sabotaging. They might be keeping us feeling safe and secure, but not taking advantage of all the opportunities in life. So, inner stories might be, oh, I am not talented enough to perform. Oh, my voice is not ready. Oh, I need to be older before I can XYZ. These are the inner stories that we can break anytime that we want to. We can let go of them. It doesn't have to be a violent breakage of your inner stories. You can just say, I no longer will tell myself things that are not true, that I know are not true. Each of you here are good people. So if any of you are teaching yourselves or telling yourselves, I'm not good enough, it's just not true. So you're going to decide to break with those stories tonight. I'm going to take a sip of tea because we take care of ourselves when we need to. Okay. I think I need another sip actually. So let me know in the chat while I rest my voice a little bit what your inner story might be. What is the inner story you want to let go of tonight? And I'll read some of the comments in the meantime. Marcia asked, how do we get rid of the inner critic? This is my demonstration right now. Thanks for that wonderful question. The way to do that is to say, my inner critic is just one opinion, and it's not actually generally the accurate opinion. The accurate opinion is that you're doing your best and sometimes you mess up. And that can be said in a very neutral, non critical way. The critic will say, "Ugh, you're such a dummy. Why did you do that again? I can't believe you did that again. You should probably just stay home," like with that tone and with that attitude, right? And like I said, you could just neutralize the tone and say, I'm a human being who does my best. I make all the efforts that I can. And some of the time I make mistakes. So it's a lot kinder. It's a lot easier to get over yourself when you make mistakes. And it's a lot easier to say, I don't criticize myself because criticizing myself in this way is not healthy for me. It's not accurate and it's not healthy for my self esteem. So thank you for that great question. Monique says, always remind ourselves, I am enough. Absolutely. Beth says, I need more information. I don't know how to do this. I hope my explanation to Marcia helped you, Beth. And Marcia said, thank you. So I'm assuming it helped Marcia. You just have to say, if you're saying something to yourself that makes you wince or makes you want to cry or makes you feel not good or makes you feel heavier than you really are, those are likely not good thoughts. Those are likely errant, erroneous stories. They're stories, excuse me, that your mind is generating to keep you feeling small. Excuse me again. And we want to practice having fun and feeling that each day is a new opportunity to expand ourselves. And that's the belief that you want to start getting used to. And so, for those of you who are not getting how to drop the inner stories, be patient, be kind to yourself. Take a moment when you need to cough and drink some water, do that, right? You need to stop and take care of yourself in the process. Otherwise, you're always going to be yelling at yourself, right? If you're yelling at yourself all the way up the mountain, how are you going to celebrate at the end? You're going to feel like, well, this wasn't worth it, right? And I'd much rather you have points where you just reward yourself. You say, "Oh, I'm at the middle of the mountain. Oh, I'm so proud I did this. Oh, what a beautiful day this is," right? And then by the time you get to the mountain, you feel like the cycle is complete, right? You want to start positive reinforcement cycles in your life where you start with a good thought about yourself, you start with a decision, you start with an action, and then you start with a new story about yourself. That's the end. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, Beth. She says, thank you. Much clearer. Wonderful. Let's move on. Another procrastination trap is forgetting to commit to your goal. So we've spoken a lot tonight about making decisions and being the success and starting the journey right away and taking action. But remember that if you don't feel committed to your goal, if you don't decide your goal is going to happen no matter what, then you're going to be a little waffly. You're going to decide, oh, this is too much trouble. Oh, the weather's really bad for a mountain climb. Oh, I get to skip Friday and all these things that will start to affect your jar of life because it will affect how you show up and it will affect how quickly you get to your goals. And the longer we take, the less we get to do other things, I think, the less time we have. So for me, speed is my friend. I don't tend to be a very quick person in terms of my actions, but I have learned that whatever time I can save, I will think about, I will consider because I really enjoy having more time to play with. The way to do that is to say, when I'm doing this one thing, I'm committed to focusing on this one thing. Make commitment a very familiar muscle, a muscle that you build and strengthen and use every day of your life. Okay. And let me go to the next comments. Let's see. There are a bunch of comments. Thank you. So Fireman says, these are paradigms that prevent you from growing. They need to be stopped in motion, recognize them, and restate the truth. Absolutely. Tell better stories is what you are reinforcing. Thank you so much. Linda says, I struggle with feeling that I don't meet others' expectations, especially at work. That is probably a story, an inner story. I have 2 learning disorders, which make me tend to be slower than others. I tell myself I can multiple times a day. Wonderful. So you know the right story. I would just say, to eliminate the story that you're not meeting others' expectations. Let them tell you. That is better than you telling yourself in a way that might not be accurate. Okay. You could survive the accurate feedback. I promise you, you can. But tearing yourself apart is actually creating another block to your learning and your efficiency. So if you can eliminate that, you're going to be much better off. Good luck with that. Wendy says, yes, telling myself how overwhelmed I am or I don't know where to start is not helpful. Agreed. Marcia said, a great example of this would be trying to lose weight and keep it off. Wonderful. Commitment. Marcia says, I've lost the same amount of weight over and over and haven't succeeded to it yet. Absolutely. You can now be more committed to keeping it off. And I wish you luck there too as well. All right. The next section is quick and it is smart investments to make. 3 things you should invest in are learning, right? Tonight, we're doing a lot of learning, absolutely. But we can learn from so many different places, different coaches, different programs, podcasts, books, the person at the drugstore, our friends. I have a group of female friends in my neighborhood, and we get together every once in a while to talk about our health goals. And it varies. Sometimes we meet for lunch and just get connected again. But our overall goal is to remain in vibrant health throughout our older years. And we intend on keeping this group going um, on forever. I don't know if they know this, but I intend to keep it going on forever as friends. Okay, then the next thing you should invest in is support for your best performance. Anything that keeps you more organized, keeps you efficient, keeps you lean, keeps you away from worrying, anything that keeps you feeling happy, anything that promotes your expansion is worth your investment. And the last thing is anything that saves you time. I just said a minute ago, I like to keep my eye on things that likely are going to save me some time because I feel like, why wouldn't I want to save time? Time is probably my most precious asset. And we want to find the right way up the mountain. Let's learn how to travel on the quickest path up whenever possible. I definitely think the straight line is oftentimes, like they taught us in geometry, the quickest way to go. Sometimes we have to wander a bit because of self doubt, because of inconvenience, because we have to manage a team, because we don't feel ready. But eventually we're going to get to the goal. I want you to know that if you have a goal in mind, if you continue day in, day out with commitment, you will get to your goal. So what are your goals going to be? How big can you dream? And how committed can you be to take the quickest, fastest, best path there with the mindset of someone who is very, very successful? And I want to give you these reminders. Don't measure your progress using someone else's ruler. Everyone is climbing a different mountain than you are. So don't compare yourself. Don't waste your precious jar of life in comparison. Please know that small incremental change can make a monumental difference in your work and output. I love the stories that you guys were telling me today about how you changed things just in a small way that made things feel more fun and more doable today. Make progress, but without maxing out your time, energy, and spirit. You always want to leave a little bit of room in the jar for play, for rest, for vacation, for experimentation, for serendipity, for new people. So you don't want to crowd yourself out of that enjoyment time and make everything enjoyable, actually. And then you'll have the experience of feeling like time just is your friend. Okay. Know yourself and implement strategies that others wouldn't take the time to do. What is hard for you that you can now simplify and make easier for yourself? You know yourself best. I am just getting to know many of you. I will get to know you over the course of the week a little bit more. I tend to feel like everyone's a friend at the end of the boot camp, but you know yourself. So don't compare yourself to other people. Do small incremental changes. Don't get lost on your journey. Don't max out your energy. Don't go towards burnout to get your goal, but do get your goal. And then appreciate yourself, know yourself, and take time with yourself. Drink the tea when you need to. And then determine the best way to start, set your vision, make those decisions, think big. Don't be afraid of thinking bigger. I think that's a big mistake that many of us make. I think I could think a lot more big than I do. I try. I try. I would like to change the world. I hope I'm doing that with things like this boot camp. And I know I can think bigger. Don't be constrained by the past or the future because you can think bigger than either of those and decide what you want to have happen in your life. Remember, you're the boss of the jar. Remember, you have a choice. This picture is really important. The picture of the two arrows really defines what a decision makes. We have to decide to do things. And when we decide things, we have to drop one opportunity potential, but then we get to fully operate and own that other one. So make a choice for yourself, make these decisions, decide to act in new ways, and you can rev that engine up anytime you want. Okay. I want to remind you guys tomorrow that tomorrow we have a live actually, it's not a live coaching call. I apologize. It's a live workshop again. Our coaching call will be on Saturday. So I forgot to switch out this particular slide, although I did look at it. So tomorrow will be workshop number 3, and tomorrow will be on how to unlock your highest and best potential. And you want to join us tomorrow at the link that I will provide you in the email at 7 o'clock Eastern, and we'll be live again for another lesson. And I would want to remind you about the prize package. Again, it is that scholarship and the 2 coaching calls that are private and an hour long. And the way to do the entries to get into the contest is to go to our Facebook group after we're done with the comments and this presentation and look for the post that has a picture of a person or maybe a desk. It's probably a person. And it says, workshop number 2, what are your biggest takeaways? It will be apparent that that is the post that you need to enter in a reply or a comment that says what your biggest takeaway from tonight's lesson was. Was it the Mount Everest exercise? Was it the productivity killers? Was it a procrastination trap? Was it something that you need to invest in so that you can take the quickest route up the mountain? Whatever it is, please drop your aha moment or your biggest takeaway into the Facebook group for one entry. The other way to get an entry is to go to social media on Facebook or Instagram and open up a post a picture of you participating, a screenshot of me, a screenshot of you doing your workbook or enjoying time with your animals at home, whatever it is. It's no matter. Just make sure to tag me, procrastination coach, and you tag by putting an at symbol, procrastination coach, and then using the hashtag power productivity bootcamp. When you do that, that will count as an extra entry into the contest that we will hold live at the end of the week on Sunday at the celebration party. Okay. And that's the directions that I just spoke about on Instagram and Facebook. Remember to use the hashtag because that's how I look up the entries. Hashtag Power Productivity Bootcamp. And I want to thank you for joining the workshop. And I'm going to hop back onto full screen and say hi, and then go through some of the comments before we wrap up for the evening. So feel free to drop questions, comments, reflections, and I will read through the last few. Let's see. Donna says, my inner story, thank you for sharing the inner story, is I am in competition with myself and more than happy to help others, but I listen to the old tapes of negative comments others about my ideas, etc. at times, which 9 times out of 10 they work out for me, but I still listen to my own negative thoughts and what others have said in negativity of my ideas. Yeah. We have to listen to these things because people are telling us negative things sometimes. We can't really avoid that altogether. I think we can clear everyone in our group and then we meet somebody else who's having a bad day and they say, "Oh, that's a funny pair of shoes you're wearing." And we can't really prevent negative events, but we can make sure that we are keeping our internal space positively oriented, that we are keeping ourselves free of negativity, criticism, bad stories, inner stories that don't work for ourselves. We're going to keep ourselves we're going to be like Ferraris. I don't know about Ferraris, but that's the car that came to mind. We're going to be so extremely precise and free flowing and fast and all these things that you might associate with a Ferrari. We're going to be high level. We're going to be so cool. And that's what you're going to go for. Okay. Without stress, of course. Thank you, Donna, for sharing your inner story. Marcia says, Dr. Lee, what did the last statement mean on the previous slide? All right. Let's go to the slide. I was asking about the statement, implement strategies that others wouldn't take the time to do. It's not very clear to me. You are right that that is not that clear. And I was thinking the same thing myself. So basically, that is just an indication that you might want to take the extra step, right? Some people might go 10 steps to get to the destination, but they're only willing to take 10. And I'm suggesting that you decide you're the person who will go that 11th or 12th step just to make sure everything is okay. That you're going to say, I'm going to put in that extra 2 or 3% and just be a good performer, be a high level performer is the indication. So thank you for having me clarify that. I think it needed clarification. Okay. Monique said the fork in the road. Absolutely. We have to make decisions when we're at the fork in the road. And those are the interesting times in life, right? It might be when your kid's going off to college, when you're about to buy a house, when you're facing a health scare, when you are wanting to drop a few pounds, when you're wanting to go back to school, even as an older person. Whatever it is, there are oftentimes forks in the road, but look at that as an opportunity for growth rather than something to be terrified of. Thank you for sharing. The guest says commitment is inspiring. Absolutely. Commitment gives us energy and power. So thank you for allowing us to see that. Demetria says, thanks. Thank you, Demetria. Catherine says, inner story to let go of that I'm not capable of doing things that others can. Perfect thing to get rid of tonight. Donna says, I love the Ferrari idea. You're welcome. Thank you. Marcia says, thanks. That makes sense. Okay, lovely. Tonight was wonderful. We got through a lot of content. So, congratulations. And tomorrow we're going to do some more. We're going to decide, okay, now that we know all of these exercises, all of these things to avoid, all of these little steps that we can take, now we're going to unlock even more potential in tomorrow's workshop. So join me tomorrow and we will all be well rested and we will all have a fresh take on things. We will be free of our inner stories as best as we can when we show up tomorrow, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. And remember now, the next step is to drop your biggest takeaway on Facebook, Instagram, and or inside the Facebook group, inside that special post for tonight's workshop takeaways. And I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for spending the time with me tonight. It's late for some of you, it's early for some of you. Thank you for coming in and joining me here. I really appreciate it. And I wish you all a great night. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye bye.